Good afternoon, it's Miguel Lloyd, your host of Life Full Circle Radio. As always, I want to say thank you for giving us a part of your day. Today, we are getting ready. We're getting closer and closer to hopefully the end of the craziest election season that we have seen in a long time. But we're recording this podcast today. It is late September, almost October. And today, we're going to have a conversation with a couple of folks that are focusing on call to action within the Black Greek community. For folks who may not know, when I say Black Greek community, what does that mean? There are people who call themselves Black Greeks. I am one. I'm a member of the greatest fraternity in America, greatest fraternity in the world, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. But there are quite a few others that are Black Greek organizations. And so, and they're primarily known as social organizations. The original, the first one was Alpha Phi Alpha, 1906, 1908. You have the AKAs, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and on down the line. And for most of you who are listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But today we're going to have a conversation with a couple of folks, and we're going to talk to the founder of the Black Greek Speaks, and it's an organization which is centered around bringing people within the Divine Nine organizations for action, political action, social action, getting involved in the community. There's an event that's coming up in Atlanta on October the 8th, 2016. It's going to be held at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. It's called Black Greek Speak Call to Action. And so we're going to have a conversation around why this organization was created. What is the purpose? What is the purpose not only of this event, but also the organization as a whole? As always, the show is brought to you in part by Lloyd Media Group, as well as MyWordCentral.com. As well as MiguelLloyd.com. Make sure you check out any of those websites that can get you connected. But let me bring in my guest for the day. And let's start off with Marlon Davis, who is the founder of the organization. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, good brother. How you doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. Finding Power. What's up, brother? And so, and then we have Ty Davis, who's a member of Sigma Gamma Rho. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you? Good. Let's dig into this conversation. As I mentioned prior to in our intro, we want to talk about this event that's coming up. It's Black Greek Speaks event, Call to Action, Empowerment for the People. It's going to be held on October the 8th at the National Center for Human and Civil Rights here in Atlanta, Georgia. Marlon, let's start with you, brother. Black Greek Speak, what precipitated creating this organization, and what is your vision for this organization?
Well, actually, Black Greek Speak, the full name is Black Greek Speak Social Justice and Human Rights Council. So that's a lot to say, which is why we say Black Greek Speak. But I think if we take the ending of that title, Social Justice and Human Rights Council, it kind of explains what we're really trying to do. It precipitates from various intersections of my own work, right? So, one, being a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity for over 25 years, and really working as a member of the fraternity, doing community outreach and even social justice projects. But once again, sometimes the work that we do as members of those organizations gets kind of dissipated as we think of these organizations as purely and primarily social organizations, right? So it was one to kind of help change and reframe a larger narrative as we move into the 21st century about the role that Black Greek-led organizations have played. And what I mean by that is, historically, the model for Black Greeks as a unit, as a body of people, really operates on what I call a 19th century rights and social justice engagement model. Even though we were founded, most of our organizations were founded in the 20th century, the early 20th century, is based on the work of Black scholars coming out of the 19th century, from Frederick Douglass to W.B. Du Bois, those late 19th century models, which was basically about individual achievement and attainment, because our organization did not have many systems and institutions that they could lean on to have systemic engagement. They really looked at trying to highlight and advance individual achievement, right? So we'll see a Martin Luther King, who was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and Ralph Abernathy, who's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and Jesse Jackson, a member of Omega Psi Phi, and even John Lewis, who was a member of Phi Beta Sigma. You'll see those men, or you'll see, in fact, King's wife, Coretta Scott King, who was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and Barbara Jordan, who was a member of Delta Sigma Theta, operating on this kind of individual level that is being supported by an organizational structure, right? So what I realized is that model can't sustain itself in an era where we have mass-mediated spaces now, right? Like we have the internet, right? Our founders of these organizations didn't have that. So I wanted to, one, re-engage our organizations to start thinking about our social justice work as not individual black heroic images like through King or Barbara Jordan, but rather as a collective model, right? That our communities could understand that the work that we're doing is as a collective unit. The other reason for that for me was that we needed a model of engagement that took in black scholars into activism work, right? So it used to happen that in the 1940s and 1950s, our black scholars were helping us lead the movement, right? So we had Du Bois who would help us construct an NAACP, right? So those things happened, but as black scholars started to be immersed more and more into the world of academia, getting into not just Morehouse colleges and or Texas Southern universities, but now being able to go to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, the work and the engagement of the black scholar became divorced from the work of just grassroots activism that worked for black empowerment. And so I wanted to again re-envision an organization that was thinking about black academics as part of black activism, right? So I wanted Black Greek Speak to serve in that chasm. And then the third, for me, was a one that began to reimagine what advocacy looked like for black and brown communities. We have activism all the time, right? So activism is the place where we act in some fashion in recasting, right? The way we're thinking or talking about certain injustices. Black Lives Matter is our new activism work, right? We see Black Lives Matter in regards to working against police violence and systemic police brutality in the criminal justice system. But what we don't see is the next phase of that, which is advocacy work, right? Which is advocacy then thinks about policy in real ways, thinks about systemic and structural changes that can be then concretized, not just in our activity to point people to those. We need activism to point a light to these injustices, but then we need advocacy, advocates who are really working to then systemically change that within or outside of the system, however we choose. And so for me, that's what Black Greek Speak was doing. It was serving those three capacities to do that. So in the end of that, it was really to kind of, our mission became to really educate, engage, and advocate for social justice and human rights issues for not just our members, but affiliates and citizens across the world.
Yeah, outstanding, because I believe wholeheartedly in us all playing our position, right? One thing that we've noticed, I think a lot of us have noticed, especially people, like you said, of academia, folks on the street, folks who are protesting, folks that are out there, they kind of look and say, where are y'all? What are y'all doing? Why aren't you out here with us? Right? And so I believe my answer is always in those conversations that, man, we got to play our position. And many of us we'll be out there at times, but we're not going to be out there every day, all day, because we're doing the work like you're speaking of at this point. And so that's what's important. Ty, let's come over to you. You're based here in the Atlanta area. And so you have been member of Sigma Gamma Rho for women don't like to date themselves, so we'll leave that alone. But let's talk about how you merge your relationship with your sorority along with your pursuit of activism here in the Atlanta area.
Okay. So the way that I make these two merge is actually I found the opportunity in Black Greek Speak to accomplish a lot of the goals that I was looking to do personally. Black Greek Speak, because it is focused on policy and advocacy, it gives me a little bit more latitude to engage in activities that are a little bit different. They look a little bit different. Most of our organizations have national programs that are already preset, and it takes a lot to change and introduce different types of things. But interacting with Marlon Smith gave me the opportunity to join Black Greek Speak and then access the resources that I have within the sorority, such as for this upcoming event in October. Most of the event is being hosted by the Upsilon Sigma chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. So having that support in terms of resources, in terms of volunteerism from the sorority is truly everything to making this venture successful for me.
Yeah, it's very important that we engage not only the organizations that we are a part of, which obviously we want our fraternity brothers and sorority sisters to come out. But like you said, we got to go across that. This is not this isn't about the Noops. This isn't about the Q Dogs. This isn't about the 20 Pearls. This is about the entire community coming together and getting something done, because ultimately what's happening, along with the church losing a lot of luster, for lack of a better term, in the younger community, millennial community, it seems that the Greek community is also losing that luster. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to get out there and show how we, as members of these organizations, are a part of that activism community. Would you agree, Marlon?
Right, I do. I mean, I think the thing that we always have to remember is that times they are changing, right? So I think about Cornel West in his book Race Matters, said there used to be buffers that shielded African Americans from the insanity of America, right? Well, like, what he meant by that was to say that there used to be structural barriers through segregation and Jim Crow that really enforced a kind of communal engagement in the African American community. We knew not only the pastor, but we knew the doctor and the dentist and the teacher and as well as the drunk and the gamblers. Everybody existed in that same space and had to figure out how to operate together, right? Mm-hmm. But eventually what happened really after 1968, right, post-King, I say that April 4th, 1968 is not just the death of King, but it also became the death of black radical intellectual movements, right, which is to say a critical thinking about how particularly black communities need to continually engage our social, political, economic, and spiritual institutions and organizations in a way that will help advance black projects for liberation, right? So what ended up happening was, with the death of that, all of these organizations split. So now I'm based in Houston, Black Greek speaking. We work in Houston as well. I often talk about black folks in Houston. They've moved to the lands. They're not where most poor black people now live. The middle income, even particularly members in the alumni chapters of our Black Greek letter organizations, we're all out in the lands. We're out in Pearland and Sugarland and Mireland and the Woodlands, and we put a fence around our communities just in case any of our cousins from these inner cities happen to want to come visit. Right? We got to figure out a way to make sure that they're announcing their presence and ultimately their difference from us. Right? So part of what Black Greek Speak then wanted to do was say, okay, we got to break that back down, that we have to again become a kind of mindful institution that is thinking about the least of these, right? So we have to begin to think about how mass incarceration is really affecting 1 out of 10 of us in real ways, regardless of class and economic status, right? So we have to think about the way education and the way in which gender inequality, the way in which we are engaged in and moving through these structures of systemic racism in ways that we have not addressed for a 21st century family. And so you're right. There's so much that we have to do, and part of that is helping us to reimagine yet again what these Black Greek letter organizations, and not the organizations, I like to always say, when I say Kappa Alpha Psi, for instance, I'm just talking about a group of men who are dedicated to a common purpose and a common goal, right? Mm-hmm. When I say Zeta or AKA or Delta, I'm talking about a group of women who are coming together, who are saying that they are dedicated to a common goal and a common mission. Sometimes we just get lost in the titles that people bring when they come into a particular space. And so what Black Greek Speak is doing is it is saying, okay, we're going to create a title so that you know that when these people come together, they're coming together organized for a common purpose and a common belief. And I make the statement all the time with Black Greek Speak. The other difference is you don't have to be black and you don't have to be Greek. You just have to be concerned and wanting to be involved. And that's what we do with Black Greek Speak.